Okay, hello, Norman England. How long did it take you to write your book, Beyond the Kaiju Curtain, a journey onto Japan's biggest film sets?
How long did it take to write? I guess I
Yeah.
would say it took 20 years to write, but that's only because the experience is 20 years old. But the book is my journal of my journey onto Japanese giant monster film sets, starting with Gamera 3, and then I concluded it with the premiere of Godzilla, Mothra, King Ghidorah, or what we just call GMK for short. It's got a very unwieldy title in English, but and it concludes in 2001, at the end of 2001, with the premiere of that film in Tokyo. And I actually stayed on with Godzilla films until Final Wars was like my last one to go to the sets, though my role in going to the sets by that time had kind of diminished because I've been branching out into my own filmmaking things and endeavors, and just kind of the industry, the reporting industry was changing. Like, it was really great. Like back in that time, 20 years ago, I was allowed to take photos, go to sets like, the first Grudge movies, Ju-On films or whatever. Yeah, take photos, knock yourself out, and that, but then eventually it started to get like, we'll give you the photos. And for me, it was kind of lost a lot of the fun about it, because I like taking photographs, and I eventually became a set still photographer, one of the jobs that I would do. So, anyway, yeah, so the book, then I guess I started to seriously write it about 10 years ago, but it was like I had emails, and I had notes. It was like all over the place, but I kept very detailed notes about that time. And so it took I had to amass them. I think I amassed them. It was like 500 to 600 A4 pages. And then I had to like whittle it down, and then I had to re-edit it and toss out what I felt was not interesting, and yeah, I mean, it was a lot of writing, editing, and rewriting. And so I guess I totally got serious about 2 years ago. Like, I got to get this thing together. And it actually would have come out earlier, but I was the book doesn't have any photographs, because I was kind of up against the wall with the Godzilla copyright owners, and they're very difficult to work with. So we were kind of, me and my publisher were like talking to them, waiting months to get responses, then getting these weird, no meaning responses, and, oh, maybe you should talk to these people. And finally we're just like, screw it, let's just put the book out. And my publisher was really great, because they felt that the text itself was strong enough that it didn't really need photos. And I've had other people, I mean, friends who have read the book since it's come out, have said things like that they first thought that the lack of photos hurt it, but after a while that the descriptions were so good that they felt like they could see it with their own imagination without, being burdened. I mean, between the two of us, and who's ever listening, my dream one day is to re-release the book with photos. Whether that can really happen or not is another issue. But actually, yeah, I have a copy right here. And why I'm showing this
Very
is
nice,
because this is actually a photo I took on the set of Gamera 3. And it was actually, I could have had photos, because I spoke to Kadokawa at the time. Kadokawa was Diet Pictures, and then they were eventually bought by Kadokawa. Yeah, I contacted them, and in one day they're like, yeah, sure, use any photos you like. I'm like, man, why can't like Toho be like these guys? I mean, their thing was, if you're going to use actor photos, you have to contact the offices and get permission from every human face. Japan is very strict about putting photographs of people online. I mean, they're even stricter than, say, like, you think the US would be like the one, the lawyer nation and stuff like that. But here they're a lot, it's kind of difficult to deal with. So No, I mean, it was great. I got a good photo, and I think the photo gives the readers an idea of what's on the pages there. So yeah. So anyway, it took me like, it's been 20 years, 10 years to start working on it off and on, and then 2 years to get the whole thing nailed down,
What a legacy.
I guess.
So, all right. So let's talk about how you first got into Japanese monster movies, and then fast forward to how you got involved in reporting on them.
Well, I think like anybody, it's the movies themselves. I was trying to recently figure out, the first Godzilla film I saw was Godzilla 54, the Raymond Burr version, King of the Monsters. And I'm from New York, a suburb of New York City called Rockland County. And I was like looking at that newspapers.com, if you know that. I have a subscription to that. I need it for my writing work. And like, I'm going to figure it out. When did I see it? And I found a broadcast from 1965. So I must have been like 5 or 6 years old when I had seen that. And that was really like, boy, it was like that. And if you know the movie Gorgo, those are two that were on TV a lot. And I just thought it was like the coolest thing. So, during the 60s, I'd go to the theater and I'd see like Godzilla's Revenge, War of the Gargantuas, and whatever, and then catching them on TV. And yeah, I mean, it was really, I got into this, as a fan. So I moved to Japan in 92, 93. My first trip here was in 1990 on a just 3-week vacation traveling around the country. Greatest 3 weeks of my life. So much fun. And then, when I got to Japan, I mean, I didn't like, I'm going to go crash the Godzilla sets. I mean, I never had any, I didn't even think that was possible, but I got involved kind of by happenstance with Fangoria, that I'm kind of been a big fan of the films of George Romero. And I'm actually wearing a George Romero t-shirt.
Yeah, I can see that.
By coincidence, but and I had written some stuff about my favorite movie of all time and space, Dawn of the Dead.
Nice.
Which I've seen over 300 times.
Whoa.
I love to admit it. No, I actually love it. But anyway, I had written a bunch. When I got to Japan, I started meeting other sci-fi fans and horror fans, kind of genre film fans. And they introduced me to this company called Capcom, which makes video games, and they're making the sequel to their successful Biohazard film. And they contacted me. The company is looking for a Romero expert, and they are doing.
And Biohazard Resident Evil, right?
Oh, excuse me, Resident Evil.
Yeah.
I'm in Japan, so I default to Japanese titles.
I read that part of the book, so I can follow.
Oh, okay. So they were like, they took me to lunch one day, and they're like, we talked for a while. We didn't talk about the commercial or anything. We're just like shooting the what. Then they're like, at the end of the meeting, I'm like, can I go to the set in Hollywood? And they're like, yeah, sure. I'm like, okay, great. And they paid for everything,
Wow.
Plane fare. I had this huge hotel room with a fireplace. I don't know. I'm
Whoa.
in North Hollywood. Why do I have a fireplace? I don't know, but it was like cool. Every night I come home, there's like a bottle of champagne.
Jeez.
I mean, like, what's going on here? And George was, great. I mean, I've met him once before. I went to the premiere screening of Day of the Dead in New York City in 1985. I used to work at an audio rental company, and I rented the DBX noise reduction system when they're doing the mix down for that. And that's how I got into the screening. And I sat right in front of George Romero because I wanted him to judge Day of the Dead based on my reaction. And I love the film. So
yeah.
But anyway, so it was great. No, I got to be friendly with George and hanging out on this set. It was my first movie set. I was taking stills. I didn't know really anything about taking stills. When I got back to Japan, I'm like, oh man, these came out okay.
Mhm.
So we started placing them in magazines here, and Fangoria contacted me. They needed photos. Anthony Ferrante, if you know him, he was a reporter for Fangoria before he did those Sharknado movies.
Oh, okay.
And
Yeah.
he was like, oh yeah, I need some photos for this. So he put me in touch with Tony at Fangoria, and it's kind of funny. I didn't put this in the book. Tony wrote me back. He goes, yeah, if we can use your photos, we'll give you a free copy of the magazine. And I'm like, forget about the free copy, which I want, but
Yeah.
I'd like to write for you guys. And then they're like,
Mm.
oh, okay, oh, that sounds great. And then they gave me a job interviewing Shusuke Kaneko. He had just finished Gamera 2. So, I set that up with Diet, and I came to Tokyo. I was living in Osaka at the time. And yeah, we had this interview that is very well documented in my book. It was my first interview ever, so I didn't really know anything about how to do interviewing or even how to write magazine articles.
Mm.
I mean, it was, I've been a Fangoria reader since, the beginning. I think my first copy was like issue 6 or 7 or something like that. So,
And that was
I've
like
been,
79, 1980.
yeah, back
Yeah.
then. So I was kind of like, I still remember that night. I finished this interview with Kaneko. I'm in my room in Osaka, and I just hit the send button. I'm like, okay. I went to bed, woke up in the morning, and they're like, thanks for sending it. Great, we got another one for you. So that was kind of like the start of my writing career that eventually led into a career. I mean, that's all today I do subtitling for Japanese films, the occasional stills. Just I'm working today on translating TV series synopsises. No,
Fun
it's
stuff.
great. I love it. I mean, I love it, and I owe a lot of it to my enthusiasm and my love of George Romero films. I actually am this thing here, the George Romero Foundation. I'm the Japan head of that in Japan. So we promote Romero awareness, if that's a thing.
Worthy cause.
Well, no, and I work for a magazine in Japan called Eiga Hiho, which is the biggest selling movie magazine in Japan. I have a monthly column, and this month I haven't gotten the issue yet, but it was like your favorite film. They had this big thing, your favorite films growing up. So not your favorite films of all time, but like the most films with the most impact. And I was at the bookstore yesterday. I haven't gotten my copy yet. And I open it up. It's like #1 movie on the first page. You open up Dawn of the Dead.
Nice.
So Dawn of the Dead is, a hugely popular film in Japan. Romero is hugely popular. So no, it's kind of worked out great. I moved to Japan not expecting any of this stuff, but I came to a country that they love George Romero, and they make Godzilla. Those are like been my two favorite things throughout my whole life. So it's kind of been serendipitous in a way.
Do they still like Suspiria in Japan?
Excuse me?
Well, I was reading Dario Argento's memoirs, and
Okay.
he talks about screening Suspiria in like a big stadium in Japan, like a baseball stadium, and it was like the craziest thing. And
Oh,
I'm
really?
wondering, is there still like a culture that appreciates Argento in Japan?
Oh, yeah. No, Argento is like, I worked on a 4K release of Suspiria recently. I mean, Suspiria is like a beloved
The
film.
Synapse one?
No, in Japan.
In Japan, okay, yeah, right. Okay.
They licensed them. They actually licensed. Here's another thing I keep under the table. They licensed the Italian 4K because the Synapse was too expensive, but the Synapse one had better color grading. So when I had to use frame caps. So I used all the frame caps from the Synapse one because it was a better looking quality. But that was great when we did a quality check in the studio, and that was my first time to see a 4K version of that. I mean, it was, in a big, private studio, because we were doing like, I guess, a sound mix or just doing the final check of it. And the company invited me. It was like, oh my God, I was like almost near tears. And my girlfriend is a manga artist, a horror manga artist. So
wow.
she's a huge Argento fan, and Yeah, Lucio Fulci, I mean, is
Yeah.
another hugely popular filmmaker, so it's like in Japan, it's like Romero, Carpenter, Hooper, Fulci,
Fulci.
yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
Just came out with a box set of his stuff in
Oh,
Japan.
cool.
They asked me to do the commentary on Gates of Hell,
Hmm.
but I was like so bogged down with work, and a lot of times with these
Mm.
things, it's like, yeah, we need you to do this. Are you available tomorrow? It's
No,
always
I've heard
if
stories like that. Yeah.
this, I'm like, oh God, I want to do it because I saw Gates of Hell twice in the theater when it came out,
Oh, wow.
back in '80,
Yeah.
and here's a little thing, has nothing to do with Godzilla or anything, but
Yeah.
like I said, I grew up in this town called Rockland County, and so Gates of Hell is playing, and was that 81? I can't remember when that is. So anyway, I went to go see it with a friend of mine, and there was literally no one in the theater. It was just the two of us. And so watching this film, and you know how it starts off in New York City, with the seance thing, and
Yeah.
then they get in the car and they drive over to Massachusetts, and there's this one shot between the two, like to bridge the things, and it's a shot in my hometown on the main drag, just the car
Oh,
going
wow.
down, and we're sitting there like, oh my God, what the hell? It's like Route 59, and there's the Moby Dick 2 restaurant. This is so weird. So then, like 2 weeks later, I look in the newspaper, it's still playing. And I said to my friend, this is really weird, because like these movies only last a week usually.
Mhm.
So I'm like, let's go see it again. We go again. The theater's now half full.
Mhm.
And when that scene comes on, everyone is like fists in the air. Yeah. So somehow word got out that there was one shot in this movie. But that was back then when people were like blown away. Like there was no internet, and the whole idea of being like on TV was like, incredible. In a movie, with a shot from our town, in it was like enough to bring people in. I had this idea, I'm going to become a filmmaker, and I'm going to do like one shot in every town in America. When it plays in that town, shove it in, and you're going to get the locals to come out just for that,
Yeah.
No, but anyway, yeah, I really wanted to share that story on the Blu-ray here, but anyway,
Can't get them all.
I can't get them all. So
well,
no,
we're talking about George Romero. I wanted to tell you I actually met George Romero in 2016, like a month before he died, here in Ottawa, and it was a real treat. I mean, when you constantly see someone, or not constantly, but when you've seen someone a lot on TV, and you actually see them in the flesh, and you really admire them, I mean, it's a pretty wonderful feeling.
Yeah, no, I mean, George went to a lot of screenings and a lot of events, and I don't know anyone who was disappointed by meeting him. He was always sweet to everybody, respectful of everybody, and what, the first time, like I said, I met him at the screening, and then on the Resident Evil commercial. Your heroes always disappoint.
Right. Yeah.
George did not disappoint me. I mean, he was like the sweetest guy from the beginning, and it's been tough to live in a world without George Romero.
Yeah, it stinks.
It totally stinks. And I'm glad I become friends with his widow, Suzanne, and other people in the organization. And, I'm doing what I can in Japan. Like Amusement Park actually just did a theatrical run. It's still playing in Japan. It's been very successful. I think we're the only place where it's actually like shown regularly in a theater. There's screenings are coming up in Kobe. And I wrote a couple pieces for the booklet on that. And no, I mean, Japan, I don't know, they really like his stuff, and it really resonates with people here, and I think it has to do with, George had a very strong sense of humanity about him. He was a real people person.
Yeah.
And whether he really liked people or not is another issue.
Funny. That's funny.
but I mean, I'm the same way. It's like I hate everybody, but I actually love humanity, and I support everybody because I feel, you know, that's a sense I got from George's stuff that, yeah, people are screwed up, but we have the potential to not be screwed up, and we have to support that potential. We have to do what we can to nurture that potential. So, George's films have always been, great influence in his interviews, and he was such a brilliant speaker. He really knew how to communicate. I mean, God, if I had a time machine, it would be like I get my butt on the set of Dawn of the Dead. That would
Yeah,
just to see that, what was going on. I mean, it's such a magic movie.
that would be cool. So, okay, we're talking about being, hanging out with George and being on that set for the Capcom commercials. So, tell me, how does, sort of generally speaking, how does a Hollywood film set differ from a kaiju set?
Well, the only like so-called Hollywood set I've been on is the Romero one,
Okay.
which was pretty interesting
Yeah.
because they had a big crew. The DP was what's his name? He shot Evil Dead 2.
Oh,
Peter Deming, is that? No, I might be wrong. Don't quote me on it.
okay.
And I know he also worked on some of the the Lynch TV show
Twin Peaks?
Twin Peaks. He did some
Nice.
stuff on that. So, we had this, we had like a real crew here. I mean, they spent $1.5 million
Mhm.
for a 30-second TV commercial. I mean, that's
It was
insane.
hot. Resident Evil was hot.
Yeah. But I mean, the thing that stood out for me, I guess, the difference, and this isn't just about kaiju film sets. Japanese, film crews are generally smaller, a lot smaller. The biggest difference is the catering. I have to say, I mean, like on the Romero one, it was like, oh my God, look at all this food. I can't believe it. In Japan, it's like, oh my God, instant coffee, powdered milk, and dry crackers, and when you get lunch here, you get a thing they call bento, and it's like 70% of it is white rice. When I work on a film and I'm on every day, eventually I'm like, no more rice. I can't eat any more rice. Breakfast, lunch, and then dinner. There's so much white rice, and I just start bringing my own food or going to a convenience store. Also, there's really no union in Japan to speak of, so there isn't a lot of protection for the crew. So, I mean, I understand there was last year in Hollywood a big to do about working hours and things like that. It didn't seem to really go anywhere. So I was a little surprised to find out that they put in those like horrible hours like we do here. But I think we put in actually more hours, and it's not a good thing, but the studios can get away with it. Like even like I detail in my book on the last day of special effects shooting on Kaneko's GMK. I mean, I gave up after like 28 hours, 29 hours on that. And I thought it was unsafe. I mean, it was, people are like ready to pass out, and you got guys climbing up on the rafters, which is like 2.5 floors up, and like you fall off of that and you're dead, forget about it. And I think I wrote that in my book too, that actually I heard that people have fallen off and died.
Oh no.
So, but I mean, I can't.
That sounds like Hollywood in like the 60s and 70s.
Yeah, Japan is generally like 20 to 25 years behind.
It sounds like
the US. That's like I said, like when I was talking about photos, back 20 years ago, I'm able to do it already in Hollywood. At that time, they were stopping, reporters coming in to take their own photos. I think that lasted in the US because I've seen stuff from like Planet of the Apes, like Conquest, that like they were letting a kid take photos on the set. And they were, I think they were published in Fangoria. That's how I saw them. Like, and they were just have a, knock yourself out. Then they put a cap on that. So Japan took a little while. That usually Japan in that regard, they look at the US and see what are they doing. okay, well, we should start doing that. Like they let the US test the waters, so to speak, you know. So yeah, so anyway, I mean, it's I think it's generally crew sizes is smaller, and the other reason for that is people help each other out. So you'll get like the sound guys moving lighting equipment. You get me, I'm basically a reporter. They got me building props and, you know, lugging styrofoam mountains and buildings around. I mean, if I was in, you know, I don't know, I mean, like I said, this is just hearsay, but you know, the old Teamster thing, you know, touch that cable and I'll break your arm off, you know, because that's like job protection. Also, the Hollywood films, the studios have a lot more money to work with. So I think it's a little more fair in the US to, you know, provide, you know, jobs for people, not just like keep it all inside the studio. So I think it's, you know, the scale in the US, I was told by a director here, is they go 10 times. So like, you know, a budget here, it's 10 times that. And, you know, like an $8 to $10 million movie here is like, you know, $100 million movie in the US gets released in 100 theaters here. It's 1,000 theaters in the US type of thing. So we're kind of like, so our crews are like 10 times smaller, but we still have to do the same amount of work. You know,
Jeez.
so.
Okay, and which kaiju set that you've been on impressed you the most?
I mean, they all have their quality, you know, different kind of quality. I mean, I think GMK, you know, that came out in 2001, Kaneko's. That was
Godzilla, Mothra, King Ghidorah.
Yeah, that one. I mean, but then Gamera.
That was a good one.
Yeah, no, I love the movie. And Gamera 3, you've seen Gamera 3.
Yeah, we got,
you know, that
this thing to show off.
There you go.
Hey.
Gamera 3, the Kyoto station, I hate to call it a miniature. I mean, this thing was gigantic, you know, and I got there like 2 weeks before they blew it up. And I was saying to the PR guys, like, you couldn't invite me on the day you blow this thing up, you know. But that thing was gigantic. I mean, you can, if you watch the film, I mean, they had two, you know, kaiju, Gamera and Iris, inside the thing fighting. So I think that may still hold the record for the largest miniature. I mean, that thing was incredible to look at. And, you know, then I guess, yeah, GMK, just because the director on that was really trying to push the so-called envelope for special effects. So he was very different approach from, he only worked, Makoto Kamiya, he only worked on GMK as effects director. And he had been an AD going back to the 80s for Kawakita, the Heisei Godzilla special effects director. So I think he felt a little bit pressure, like he has to do something different. No, those I think look really good, especially the Godzilla versus Baragon battle in the film, because they spent so much time on it. Then they ran out of time for the Ghidorah and Mothra battle, so those got a little rushed. But those shots, I think, look really, you know, they really hold up today. You know, I mean, I'm a big suit fan. You know, but I mean, all of them, you know, the thing, it's really hard to say, because one of the things I love about the sets and movie making in general is every day is different. Every day has a different kind of challenge, you know, like one day it might be like, I can't remember which Godzilla film, they had this great shot, like Godzilla just walking across the stage, and he had blasted some fighter jets, and like the jets stream in front of him and then crash off screen. It was so inventive. You know, it's just Godzilla on this bare stage because they weren't showing his feet. And the plane is coming down on wires and it crashes off screen, but where it collides, they had sand acting as water, you know, and that it just blasted up on the side of the stage. I'm like, oh man, this looks so awesome. It's just so kind of basic in a way, but it's just like, I mean, really imaginative, really great. I mean, so every day, I mean, it's hard to just pick out, oh yeah, this day, I've got tens of thousands of set photos. But no, there was always like awesome things going on. And yeah, I'm really grateful, as a fan from childhood to be, have somehow worked my way, onto these sets. That's why I made, my book too, was to share the experience with the readers. I mean, that was the crew themselves were aware that, of course, I'm a writer. I was writing stories for Fangoria, and I was writing stories for Japanese publications as well. But they really wanted this story, how their sets operate, and told in how can I say, told in a truthful way, not a studio whitewashed kind of way. They wanted that story told, and they wanted it told in the West. So, had a lot of support from the crew, back then, to take photos and to understand what they were doing, in the hopes that I would put out this book. It took me 20 years, but I finally got it out. A couple people have passed away since then, which kind of hurts me a bit. They're in the dedication section of the book, like the continuity person, Junko, who was such a sweetheart. She passed away a couple years ago, suddenly, just cancer. I went to her funeral. Everybody from the Japanese special effects industry was at her funeral. I mean, it was very, very sad, but I have great stories about her kindness, and that's the thing that, that I really loved about being on the set. As much as I loved looking at what they were doing, was to discover the humanity, on the set of the people, and I tried to represent them as human beings, inside my writing. So it's not, I don't look at my book, it's like, oh, I've got this Godzilla book out. It's really a book about the Japanese film industry and the kinds of people, that work in this industry. That's kind of like a poverty row industry, but it's kind of made up of misfits and film lovers, and people that really are dedicated to cinema, and they couldn't function. And I'm kind of the same way. I mean, I like, yeah, maybe I should have worked in a bank and made more money, but I'm not motivated by money. Of course, I need money, but I want to make my money doing the things that I like to do. I don't want to, I can't work on things that I don't feel anything for. So maybe it's a curse.
No, I just,
But
I relate. I understand. Like, I wish I could just be focused on money. I wish, but
yeah, no, yeah,
because movies are awesome.
yeah. Movies have been, have been my thing throughout my entire life, and I'm glad that, like, I was a musician in New York, and I love music as well, 70s and 80s. I played in a semi-popular band in Manhattan, and I was going that route. But when I decided to move to Japan after my band broke up, and then I got into this industry, my mom, before she passed away, she said, like, I always knew your destiny was in cinema. And it was really nice of her to say that. And yeah, Japan gave that to me, Japan. So I'm grateful that, my decision to move here, which was not based on, I'm going to go to Japan and work in the movie industry, because it's a very difficult industry to break into. There are more foreigners involved than ever before in Japan. Like when I got involved, you never see any foreigners, but now, I mean, there's like two groups. There are the Japanese professionals, and then they're like foreigners who live here that make their own films that are, they have Japanese crews that want to work with foreign people, and they're kind of separate, but there are people that kind of like go on both ends. So yeah, but I would never recommend. It's pretty tough, and I think it's tougher today because of the competition, so
yeah. Tell me about the Godzilla suits.
The Godzilla suits. Well, as I detail in my book, I was lucky enough to wear a Godzilla suit, the GMK suit, and that was because the actor Yoshida was like the same height as me, because those the suits are custom made. You know, they pick the
Yeah,
suit
okay.
out there, and then they design the suit to fit that person's body. And Mr. Kitagawa, who was the other Godzilla in what they call the Millennium series, which are the
Yeah.
Godzilla films between 99 and 2005. He was
Mhm.
a very sweet guy. I love him very much. But he was like considerably shorter than I was. You know, he'd come up like this. I mean, I could never even fit in that. I don't think anyone, he wasn't a tiny guy by any means, but he wasn't, you know, he wasn't, I'm 170. 170 centimeters, and Yoshida was 171. You know,
Yeah.
so it's like, you know, nominal the difference. And I think, I don't know offhand, Kitagawa's, but he might have been like 160 or something. And that's a big enough difference.
Yeah, oh,
that
yeah.
it's like I'm not going to get in this thing. So, you know, and the suits are, you know, they've made various suits over the years, because they've been doing this for like 60 years, you know, like
Yeah.
suit building and stuff. So I know the original Godzilla suit was like, I don't know offhand how heavy it was, but it was pretty heavy. And then they, you know, they've been developing them over the years and stuff. But even like with the GMK suit was pretty heavy, because Kaneko wanted a larger suit. He wanted Godzilla to be larger. I guess they had gone with Kitagawa because it make him a little shorter, you know, kind of like in the first Alien movie when they have on the ship, and they've got to make it look bigger. They had children in the alien outfits, you know, when they find the space jockey guy, you know. So when they do those wide shots, they're like the long shots, they're actually children to make them smaller. So I think that was the thinking with Kitagawa, get a slightly smaller guy inside the suit, and then the miniatures will look, you know, bigger or something. But Kaneko wanted a bigger Godzilla suit, so that thing turned out to be pretty heavy. And yeah, so, you know, I mean, it's like shooting's wrapping up, and I'm like, can I wear the thing? And you know, and I was talking to Yoshida, actually. I was like, yeah, I want to wear the thing. He goes, oh, you don't want to wear this thing, it stinks, I've been in the thing, you know, for the past 3 or 4 months, you know. I'm like, no, I want to get in the thing, I want to wear the suit. And he goes, yeah, I don't care. So I went up to Shinada, the suit maker, and I'm like, yeah, Shinada, you think I could wear this? He goes, you want to wear it? I'm like, yeah, man, like, who doesn't want to wear the Godzilla suit? And then he's like, yeah, okay, well, you know, I don't have any problem, I'm fine with it, but we should just check with the office. So we walked across the studio, and we went over to their like office buildings, you know, because I guess Toho has like 10 stages at the time. I think they have more now, because they've built new stages and they've really redone the studio. So we went over to the office buildings, and there was one of the production managers was in there, and they're like, and he's like, everyone on the crew are all freelancers, you know, so they're hired for each production, but then they have producers and like line producers and stage managers. Those are people that are like employees of Toho. So we went up to one of the guys, and Shinada's like, yeah, Norman wants to wear this suit, is it okay with Toho? And he's like, yeah, we don't care, fine. I imagine today they would say no, you know, because of like, I could have hurt myself in the suit, you know, there could be whatever, you know what I mean, lawsuits and stuff. I mean, the thinking has really changed, but the thinking even 20 years ago was like, yeah, sure, you know, whatever. You know, they didn't think in those terms today. That's another way, like Japan has become more kind of lawyerized, like the US. So yeah, no, I mean, it was really, you know, I don't want to spoil my book, because I really worked hard to convey the experience of wearing a suit, you know, just like getting into how difficult it was to get into the thing, how difficult it was when they, you know, it's in a big steel contraption, and then they unsnap the hook, you know, you get inside the thing, then they unsnap the hooks, and man, it is like, you know, someone just threw a sack of, you know, dry cement on your back, you know, like, oh my God, this thing weighs so much. And you know, sealing it up inside, and it's just, you know, they have like black material inside to make it darker, so it's really like, you know, it's like you've been dropped in some like cave, and with, like you're at the end of a 3-mile cave and your lighter goes out, that's how like dark it is inside that thing, until you notice, oh, there are these little mesh holes for me to see out of and stuff. So yeah, no, I mean, it was really fun. And the thing that was funnier about it was, after I wore the suit and I was in it for about 10 minutes, I gave it a spin around this, in front of Studio 9 and what they called the big pool, where they would, the outdoor pool they do all the water scenes, which is long, it had been raised like 15 years ago. But after that, and the way the film had just wrapped like 4 or 5 days earlier, so all the stuff was still at the studio. That's when I wore the suit. And then the next weekend or the next week, they were doing a canned coffee commercial featuring the Godzilla. They have these things in Japan, canned coffee. They're like the most awful kind of coffee you could ever drink. But so they were leaving all the props and everything so they could film like a thing with Yoshida suit actor and how when he's feeling down, he drinks the canned coffee and it reinvigorates him to play Godzilla. So they kept everything there. And I went to the shooting of the commercial and I was telling everyone, yeah, I wore the suit. It's like everyone on the staff was pissed. They're like, why do you get to wear the suit? I've been working on Godzilla 20 years and I've never worn the suit. Like, how did you do it? And I said, I asked, did anyone ever think to ask? And they're like, oh no, we never asked, So anyway, that's my little suit wearing. But I
to get the full story, you gotta buy the book.
Yes, buy the book. And also I can tell you though, yeah, my respect for people who wear those things really went up, because it's one thing to wear it for 5 minutes, 10 minutes, but to do this day in and day out, and it's dangerous, and you have to put your full confidence in with the crew, and not get all grumpy like I would get after like probably 3 days, like that. And it's physically and mentally demanding, I mean, it's not and it's not something just anyone can do. So yeah, no, I really realized, I'd seen a lot of Godzilla stuff. Yeah, it's really cool, it looks hard, but being in the suit really was like, made me really see that it was not something to laugh at, or when like Westerners scoff at these things, a guy in a suit, whatever, I mean, you don't know what you're talking about. It's a different aesthetic,
Definitely.
And yeah, I don't let people belittle the genre in any way, because it's just their own ignorance.
And there's nothing wrong with the fun.
What do you mean?
Well, I mean, they're fun movies.
They're fun movies. Yeah, they're fun movies. I mean,
and that's like period. Like it's entertaining, and I enjoy watching a guy in the Godzilla suit wreak havoc on Japan. And what else? I like, you don't have to elaborate. It doesn't have to be anything else beyond that. And often it is, but it, like, if it is just fun, well, I mean.
No, they are very enjoyable movies. I mean, some are better than others, and some are deeper than others. But yeah, they're a lot of fun. Even movies, like say Space Godzilla.
Yeah.
I'm not a big fan of the movie, but I don't know. I come back to it and I watch it, and I have a good time, even if I think, oh my God, this is so ridiculous. But I don't know, there's just something, there's some kind of confidence, weird confidence that they have. Like, that's the thing, a problem I have with the US, especially recent US genre films, is they seem embarrassed by the genre element. So they try to add real things like, family issues or work issues. So it's more about those things, and rather just like the awesome, these things. And the Japanese seem to not be embarrassed by that stuff. They go for it in a very unabashed fashion, and I like that. That's what I want from these films, when I watch, especially like Marvel movies, it's like, where's the genre stuff? I'm like, I just want to see guys just like, they know it's ridiculous, but we're going to have a great time,
Yeah.
and used to get that. Like, that's what the 80s were all about in US stuff, is like, I'm a big fan of Chud, for example, or I don't know, any of these films. I mean, the stuff, these
This
things,
sounds great.
and they just go for it. This
Yeah.
is the concept and we're going for the concept, but it's really, as the costs have increased and they've got to appeal to a greater audience, they adding in all this stuff that doesn't really, isn't really there for the us, fans of that stuff. So I find myself very bored by the US ones. And like you said, I don't find them fun in the way I find, the say the Godzilla films, fun. Definitely. If that makes any sense to you. But
no, I'm getting it. What are your thoughts on the recent Hollywood Godzilla movies? Do you have one that you think is better than the others?
I find it's the same thing. I'm really not, I'm not interested in CG stuff. I don't mind CG stuff so much. I don't have anything against CG. I mean, I was there opening day for Tron. I love Tron. And Last Starfighter came out. I was like, oh my God, more CG. I saw young Indiana Jones 3 times just to see that stained glass knight jump out. Like, I never saw anything like this. But really, after Terminator 2, I've been finding CG to becoming more like, it all looks the same. I mean, it all looks the same, and the goal is just to, it seems like it's mimicking reality, but it really isn't. So I don't know why people think it's more realistic than, say, miniatures. And the miniatures have this,
they have more charm for sure.
And they have more charm, and I don't want to belittle, because I know it's a lot of work to get that stuff done, and a lot of talented people are making those things. But I don't know. I mean, I'm not saying that they're bad, or you're foolish for liking them. I'm just talking me personally, that they don't have that kind of charm that I, watching Empire, like Empire Pictures movie, like TerrorVision or something like that, where it's just, I mean, the US used to have that charm and stuff, but even Japan, it's kind of, I mean, they're really not making kaiju movies anymore, because of, I think Shin Godzilla really kind of hurt the genre here because of using CG. Now it's that, now they've brought it to this level where it's like they can't go back.
Can't compete.
Yeah. So I know that a friend of mine, Yamazaki, who did the Sunset films, the Sancho Me no Yuhi films, he won Best Director. He's now making a kaiju movie. So they were actually asking for runners. So I spoke to some of the crew the other day, and they're like, "Oh, it's set in the past, so no foreigners." Like, oh, okay, whatever. But no, so anyway, I mean, Toho is actively making some new kaiju film, but I'm sure it's going to be CG, because Yamazaki is a big CG guy. He even did, like, I did a film which played at Fantasia. I see you do Fantasia stuff. My first movie, called The Idol, which came out in the US on SRS, this premiered at Fantasia in 2006. I was a guest there. But Yamazaki did all my CG on this, like alien ship and stuff like that. And yeah, he's a big science fiction nerd. So no, I'm really happy that they're making a new film, but his company is basically, he just did this thing called Godzilla the Ride, which is at a amusement park here. It's one of these, like, I don't know, Star Tour type things. You get in it, chairs and stuff, and Yamazaki took me and a couple of the staff just to go have fun over the summer. And so we wrote it a bunch of times, and it's really great, but it's all CG with miniatures. They build miniatures and then they scan the miniatures. Okay. If you know what I mean. Yeah. Like one of the guys was like, "Hey, you used my miniatures I built for your other film, and I didn't get paid for it. You just used my thing indiscriminately." So we were all laughing, but that's how it is in Japan. I mean, a lot of the crew members who do stuff, it's like paycheck to paycheck, and that's the way it is, just as long as you keep on getting the next job.
Yeah.
But anyway,
People
I
are
mean,
much
they're
like that.
making, they're right now they've announced, like 2 weeks ago, Toho's making a new one with this guy Yamazaki in charge. So, I mean, I think that'll let us know the future direction of Japanese kaiju filmmaking. But I seriously doubt it's going to have any kinds of suits or anything like that, because
Ah,
they're going to want it to compete on the,
yeah.
internationally. You didn't see the Miike film from this summer,
The
the yokai
Yoga
film?
War or whatever.
Yeah, the Great Yokai War.
I did not see it.
Okay, because
It
that
was
had
played in
done.
Fantasia, but I did not see it.
I did the subtitles on that,
Oh, cool.
which was fun. I
I
always
got
loved.
to interview Miyake.
Oh, really?
I met him in Toronto, face to face.
Okay,
Pretty great.
cool. He's a very sweet guy. I did. If
Yeah,
you've ever
yeah.
seen
Low
Yakuza
key.
Apocalypse, yeah,
Yakuza Apocalypse is fun. Yeah, I like that movie.
I did all the English dialect, and I wrote all the
Oh,
English things. So I had to work on the set with Mike on that, and I did the subtitles and the script translation on that. But he was very, he looks like this really hardcore guy, like he's gonna, bite your face off, But
he's got great fashion sense.
yeah, and
Yeah.
but he's a sweetheart. He's a very shy guy.
True.
Really, in real life, he's very shy. So no, I really liked the film, and that had a CG daimajin, but all the CG was outsourced from, I think, Asia. So I thought it looked good, not perfect, good, but even Hollywood stuff you can always find, even on the big, $250 million Marvel films. It's like, well, that's a little sketchy, that shot right there.
I like how Miyake's CGI looks like messed up. It's creative. It's like it is CG. Okay, it's not like purely practical, but it's like sort of it's cheap and it's crass, and it like and his movies are crazy. And so I feel like often, like in Ichi the Killer, for example, some of the CGI with like faces getting cut in half, that's great.
Yeah, no, no, and there you go. I mean, that's why I don't have anything against CG, because if it has the charm,
For sure.
if it has the charm element, like I said, I felt Tron, as primitive as it looks, it still holds up because it had a kind of charm and a kind of, fascination with itself, and it was kind of new. Even like, I mentioned Last Starfighter, I look at that and there's just this weird ambience about this coldness, about the CG that really, for me, captures space, So, and Miike, his stuff he's done has that, like you're saying, it has a sense of fun rather than trying to like convince the unconverted audience member, oh, that's fake or whatever. So no, and he's just a good filmmaker all around. Even his bad movies will always have something. It's like a Star Trek episode. You can take even something like Spock's brain, and you're going to find something good in it.
Yeah.
So it's like Miike films, even when they're not like his best, there's still something good about it.
Absolutely. Completely agree with
love,
that. It's like a Woody Allen movie. It's like not the best, but it's
but
not Manhattan. But
still
you can still talk about it like in comparison to the other ones.
Yes. Yeah.
Absolutely. All right. Well, Norman, thank you very much for your time. I really enjoyed talking about your life.
Thanks for listening,
your
and
book.
get my book.
Yeah. So when and where can people get your book?
Well, I mean, we're all now slaves of Amazon, so it's available. It's available on Amazon. I know, in the various regions, UK, Japan, Germany, Canada, US, Amazon. It's set up in the different regions. My publisher did that. I know it's available at different online things. I'm not really sure offhand. I'm sorry. I think some stores are carrying physical copies, but I really couldn't tell you now. I think we have them in Tokyo now at Kinokuniya, which is our big bookstore here. I mean, really, Amazon if you just look on the internet, it'll give you your options if you're an anti-Amazon person, which
Okay.
several of my friends are.
Just
So
Google it.
just Google the goddamn thing. No, but
Okay,
anyway,
well,
I
thank you
mean,
very much
I
for your
just want to
time.
say I'm really
Yeah.
grateful, anybody who picks up the book and reads the book. I mean, I think, there's no other book really like it, and it's really
Mhm.
about Japanese film set life,
Mhm.
it's not really like it's a Godzilla book, even though it takes place on Godzilla sets and Gamera sets.
Mm.
But I think I describe the industry here. So anyone who's just interested in filmmaking, and behind the scenes stuff will see so this is what it's like working in Japan. That's
And it's a lot of fun.
Well, thank you very
You're
much.
welcome.
I tried to make it fun. I mean, got to have fun, and there's no
It's a
reason why.
Godzilla movie.
Yeah, I mean, if it's Godzilla, it's got to be fun. So, there you go.
Exactly.
But Michael, thank you very much for having me. I mean, it's a pleasure.
My pleasure. Lots of fun.
Okay, thanks.